This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Our friends over at SeatGeek are giving us a promo code of TBA Wrestling. That is TBA Wrestling for $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to Gunners Rust Podcast, where we are positively Arsenal, and that we are. And we actually have a lot to talk about. The first Premier League weekend is in the books. -1, Chelsea and Fulham tonight at the Cottage. Not to be played yet. But I think we're starting to get a lay of the land. Or maybe that's us just kind of jumping to conclusions way too early in a season. Is the first game kind of extended pre-season? You just got to hope you get away with it. I.e. Man City, maybe even Liverpool could say they've got away with it. Man United did not get away with it. Tottenham did not get away with it. Who knows, really? But we'll dive into all of that today because we've got everything that went down in the Premier League. We've got the City-Tottenham transfer thing that's happening, plus the information we've just learnt from the 115 charges update. So we have that. We signed Konsa since I last spoke to you on the Patreon. And we actually played our first Premier League game, so we need to get into that. And that's where probably we'll start. We'll kind of do it in chronological order, starting with Friday night, signing Konsa, Arsenal Coventry, talk about the weekend that was, and then finish with some transfer stuff with Tottenham, Man City, 115 charges, and Arsenal stuff. If there's anything else to be done. I feel like I was out of breath for the whole of that intro, so I do apologise. But if you do enjoy me being out of breath and doing this Gunners Rust podcast here on iTunes, Spotify, give us a 5-star review. It's also on Amazon Music. It's also on YouTube at TBA Wrestling, which is also our SeatGeek code. But if you like more of this, our Patreon, the link below, it's about £6 a month. You get into a raffle to win a graded Arsenal card every single month. All our Patreons are paid Patreons. And you get multiple more audios per week, not just the two here on the main feed. You get previews, reviews, you get instant reactions, you get interviews. We also do like a new player situation, Konsa, a player profile, things like that. Only during, obviously, the transfer windows in January and summer. But either way, there's a lot to be done. So there's a lot to get through today, so I need to slam through it. But we'll start with Friday. We'll start with Konsa and that signing. If you haven't listened to any Patreons, obviously, where do we stand with Konsa? There's so many ways of looking at it, and I think we're also in a world where we all need to be accountants as well as fans. And I don't want that to come across as rich from an Arsenal fan, because I know for a fact we can be quite judgy with spending until it's us. I'd say that Arsenal fans, over the years, because we got so used to, in the eras of spending a lot of money. I mean, back in the day, that no one really spoke about it, and the fees weren't crazy. But I'd say since the Premier League started, let's say the modern era, the 34 years of the Premier League, we've been very much not the big spenders, especially of the traditional quote-unquote big six. And we got very used to that with the Wenger years, because realistically, the only reason we're about fourth in the overall all-time spend is really since about 2016. This is the end of Wenger going into Emery. This is when Wenger was trying to claw back some kind of control, because we're the only team to be in a net positive 10 years running. And we also maintained Champions League football and paid off a stadium. That kind of fact and what Wenger did there is so legendary and something that isn't talked about. People will say, oh, Unai Emery won 3 UEFA Cups and a Conference Cup, or something. And be like, oh, he's better than Wenger. Wenger never really won a European trophy. But there's other things, that account for management, in my opinion. And Wenger, one of them was that, selling our best players every year, not really recovering as far as buying someone to replace them, paying off a stadium, and simultaneously being in the green, which is just mad, because this is what kind of teams like Brentford and Brighton and those guys do it now. But they're not maintaining top four. They're maintaining top four. They're not also paying off a stadium. They're just surviving. But they're not surviving by the skin of their teeth. They're doing extremely well. But we're also in an era where you can get 80 million for Savinho. Wenger was in the era of selling Thierry Henry for 16 million the same summer that Darren Bent went for the same price. That's where he was coming from, and he was having to turn this over and stay in the green. And we all joke about how bad we are at selling. a lot of that, the best ones, other than Anelka, have happened in the last 10 years, and they still aren't great. So Wenger was not only doing that, he was selling 5 or 6 players, replacing them with 4 unknowns, but making them very good, and then 3 years later selling those guys for 30 million. And again, paying off a stadium. And this is like it's very hard to, it's a non-metric. No one cares if you paid off a stadium, all these things, but they do if you don't. You look at Man United and the state they're in. They can't get an atmosphere into that stadium. The stadium's rubbish. They can't get a tune into the team. There's no atmosphere with the players. It's a whole thing you've got to build as the manager. And Wenger kept that alive the whole time. This is why Arteta, I think, 3 Community Shields, an FA Cup and the Premier League. Yeah, it's very good. Longest serving manager in the current Premier League. But what he'll most be known for me, is what he's done to the culture. Getting us all back on board, filling that stadium, changing little things, enjoying things like having Win the Dog, who's now won the dog. Not saying we'll defend the league title, we're going to attack the league title. All this fun stuff, the 2 little brains talking, from the documentary. He's given us so much, and then backed it up with something that we didn't think we'd ever experience again in our lifetime, or certainly near side, with all the state-owned teams, which we will talk to at the end of the episode, because that's becoming extremely problematic. So they're like the non-metrics that you can't really account for, but they actually do so much. And like I said, when they go right, no one really cares, and they say it's all about winning. When it goes wrong, that's all people want to talk about. Is, Unai Emery is losing the dressing room, or this guy's losing a dressing room, or there's no atmosphere, the players aren't rallying it, blah, 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 blah. All these things. All of this to say, we have become accountants. That was a long way of getting there. But over the years, we become very judgy of other teams spending money because we are used to Wenger. We are also part of, not a problem, but the teams that spend a lot of money now. So we can't really turn our nose up at, Tottenham spending a lot of money now, all these different teams. Liverpool spending close to £500 million, but their net spend was actually really good, similar to what Tottenham are doing. We're actually doing that very badly now. Our net spend is awful. But we are still in the green, as far as not net spend, but as far as PSR and things like that. So we all talk about this. We listen to podcasts like this and other Arsenal podcasts and other sports things. And some of the things that we talk about almost instantly are based in accounting. It's, yeah, but this guy's making 300 grand a week. He should be doing that. Or we do all that. We don't actually just talk about what we're seeing with our eyes. So I'm caught in 2 minds. One side is I'm looking at it going, do we need to spend 50 million on another defender when we've already got 7 centre-backs at the club in Salmon 8? I don't know. I must admit, I thought, I said at the start of the transfer window, Stones on a loan would be a great deal for me because we're not spending a massive amount. Maybe the wages, again, another hidden fee that I think a lot of fans we don't talk about. We go, oh, that player, like Haaland's a perfect example. Only 60 million, what a bargain. But it costs them around $1 million a week to keep at the club. It's not all about that. Sometimes fees can be really high, but their wage bill isn't massive. And wage bills over a year, for example, Man City spend around 10 million more than Arsenal currently on wages per year. That's a big old chunk. That's a big discrepancy. But we don't talk about that part. We talk about net spends. But that's the actual ongoing spend. It's like having a direct debit as opposed to buying a car outright. Sometimes things just linger and they actually spend more money in the long run. So we're thinking that, like I said, do I think we needed him? Not necessarily. But then when I actually do the kind of math and take away the kind of starting 11 thing that we all do naturally and think of it as, the game's evolving. There's a squad game. PSG have players that they just save for certain competitions and keep them fit, ready for March through to May. We're getting used to all this. So the idea of bringing him in is like, well, if he's happy to sit for the next 3 years behind Gabriel and Saliba, and he's 28, so he's probably never going to see the team. Yeah, you can look at it that way. You can also look at it as he may have been told that Saliba's not back till least February, so you're going to have a good season at Arsenal. You might win something. Then you might become back up. But with the evolving nature of football and injuries, look at Bruno Guimaraes. He's out for potentially up to 6 weeks. They don't know. It's mixed reports, but could be up to 6 weeks. So all of a sudden, everyone's going, get rid of Zubimendi. We don't need him. Okay, well, if you want Rice and Lewis Skelly to play every 3 days. I know we don't have every game every 3 days until Bruno's back, but this can happen at any point. Rice gets a 6-weeker. Bruno Guimaraes at 28 going on 29, as we've all been reminded, will need to play every 3 days with Lewis Skelly. And then we go, oh, I don't want to drop all the way to Zubimendi, because Zubimendi's become the new Norgard in fans' brains for whatever reason, even though he was a massive difference between us being what we were the year before, second, and being first. Was Zubimendi was a huge part. So we forget that. So then I look at the centre-backs and I go, all right, the left side, Calafiori and Hincapi. Hincapi usually very kind of stays fit. We don't have usually too many issues, whereas, apologise for my dog barking, if you can pick that up, I think you'll be able to pick it up. Calafiori doesn't stay fit. Lewis Skelly's moving in midfield, so he's not a left-back. Left centre-back at Gabriel, we have a backup in someone like Salmon, for example, but we also have Hincapi and Calafiori that can play there. So you kind of feel okay because, touchwood, Gabriel and Hincapi stay very fit. Salmon is a youth prospect, but we feel kind of happy with it. Then on the right side, it's a different picture because Saliba has always been someone who's like a stalwart in our team and doesn't really leave the squad often. He usually plays a lot of minutes and he's the best centre-back in the world potentially. Whereas the right-back position, we have Ben White and Timber who have kind of exchanged injuries. When one guy comes back, the other one goes, in it vice versa. So we have Mosquera, who is pretty much having to play centre-back, right-back, centre-back, right-back. We saw him in the Champions League final playing right-back. He's playing centre-back right now. For 13 million, 20 years old, we talked about it. Unbelievable signing, an unbelievable player. And this is not stuffing up his pathway. Konsa's 28, Mosquera's 21. In 3 years' time, when Konsa's not at the club or he's an ageing centre-back who does kind of sit in there as a bit of authority on the bench, he'll be 24. Salmon will be 19. We have to look long term. Lewis Skelly will be 22 in 3 years. That kind of Dowman will be 19. That's what we got to accept is you got to win now and you've also got to win in 3 years. What you don't want to do is completely forget about 3 years' time and then win just now. And you also don't want to worry about 3 years without winning now, which Chelsea are kind of struggling with that balance. So I looked at it and I thought, okay, well, we're quite happy if you just split the defence in the back. Mosquera right centre-back and Ben White right-back. Cool, we're happy with that. All right, well, let's say Mosquera gets a 3-monther, touch wood. All right, well, Timber's going to have to go centre-back, Ben White right-back. Yeah. Either of them don't ever stay fit. So what if we end up playing them both every 3 days in those two positions, and after a couple of weeks they both get injured? Where are we at? All right, Zubimendi's right-back, right centre-back, Declan Rice or Salmon. And it's so quickly done. And it does sound ridiculous, everyone's saying we've got so many centre-backs. Yeah, but when two of them are quite unreliable as far as the right-backs, and Mosquera's a 21-year-old playing centre-back or right-back, yeah, that sounds like 3 players to fill two areas. That seems good. I've always thought with a defence you want 4 and 4. So you can go Hincapi, Gabriel, Saliba, Ben White. And on the other time, you go Calafiori left back, Timber right back, and then you've got Mosquera, then you've got Salmon. And that isn't a weak point. I think Salmon's unbelievable. At centre back, you can really kind of throw off someone's trajectory by about one bad game. You really can. And 16 for a centre back, other than Pau Kabasi, is quite young. It's very young. If Max Salmon loses the ball and it goes to a goal, no one really cares. If Salmon does, people care. So it is a bit of a worry because you do get 2 centre-back injuries. Cool. Now your full-backs, Hincapi and Timber become centre-backs. That's fine. Nice back four with Ben White and Calafiori as the other full-backs. But they can't play every 3 days. We're fighting on 4 competitions. So I get the Konsas. So, like when I look at it on surface, I go, oh, that's just too many players. Then when I deep down look at that and what could happen in 6 weeks' time, I'm thinking, yeah, he's going to be very needed. And it's not, let's throw Mosquera out of the team. There might be a period where 3 weeks no one gets injured. And he's playing and Mosquera's on the bench, or Mosquera doesn't even make the squad that week. And everyone's going to go, this was so harsh on Mosquera, who's been unbelievable for us. But I can tell you right now, there'll be 4 or 5 people on that injury table. I'll say table. I was going to say mattress. Injury mattress. On the injury table at any given time. So chances are we're going to need both of them. a lot because Mosquera's going to end up playing right back. Because at the minute, Ben White's he cannot play as often as he's playing, so someone's going to have to play that. Timber's still not fit, so Mosquera might end up at right back and Konsa right centre back. We really are in that kind of situation. As far as the actual player, I think he's unbelievable. In England international, 28 years old. When you look at metrics, unbelievably similar to Saliba as far as duels, ball playing, how many passes, pass completion's actually higher. Quite a calming influence, got a good tackle on him. The one metric that he's not great at, and this is interesting, is Saliba is known for not being good at headering the ball necessarily. That's his one weakness. Konsa's one weakness is headering the ball, but it's significantly worse off than Saliba. Not that he's a bad header of the ball, he just doesn't header the ball. When you look at the metrics, it is unbelievable. He does not header the ball. Might be to do with Villa's high line the last 3-4 years, messing with the numbers. And maybe he allows the ball to bounce and that he likes to attack the second ball. Maybe he steps off 10 yards and allows the player to bring it down. Then he attacks. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him and thought just about him. We'll probably find out in the next few weeks. But he looks like a real proper player. And a lot of people said the backup to Gabriel and Saliba now is Konsa and Mosquera. Dare I say, is the best centre-back pairing in the league is Saliba and Gabriel. The second best is potentially Mosquera and Konsa. And that is quite something. And it is, and all we got to think about as fans and, not worry about the finances sometimes is did that just make us stronger? 100%. That's all as fans we got to worry about. We don't have to worry, does that upset Mosquera? Where's his pathway? Football's evolving every day. There's new players, there's new situations, and we'll find out pretty soon. But as for Friday night, so overall I'm happy with the signing. I would like another attacking signing, even though I do not want it to stop Solis playing, because Friday night against Coventry, under the lights, we might have had maybe the calmest, most relaxing Arsenal game in maybe 3 years. And it might be to do with the weight off our shoulders for winning the championship. It also could be we played very well, which we did. But the starting 11 being Raya, we had Calafiori on the left, who was pre-season looked really good, and Hincapi definitely had that down last year. But I think Arteta absolutely loves Calafiori and Ben White as his fullbacks because of what they give you, and different game states will give you different reasons. But Calafiori left back, Ben White right back, centre back Mosquera and Gabriel. In the middle we went with that Lewis Skelly, Rice, Odegaard. Bruno Gomes is out, wasn't in the matchday squad. Nor was Nelson, Vieira, Jesus, and Martinelli, which is a talking point with Ian Wright. And it was interesting because he was definitely left out purposely. Ian Wright's kind of mentioning that there's been absolutely no communication with the player, and it's unfair. And I agree. I think Martinelli is kind of a forgotten, unsung hero of the last 6-7 years. With Saka, he was the guy that held it down. They were our wingers in the years where everyone thought we were unbelievable. They were the wingers when people thought we were stodgy, but winning Premier Leagues. They are kind of our guys, and they've been there since the get-go. His defensive ability, some of the important goals he scored over time, he's an Arsenal legend. And he doesn't deserve to go out like this, kind of watching us lift the trophy and not being in the matchday squad. And I understand if the communication is bad, then it is. But what we have also known is that he said no to moving to Turkey. He wants to go to a Big 5 league, but is also open to Saudi Arabia. So communication seems okay there to me. When we won the Premier League last year, he put up a post that was very much like, this is a dream come true, blah, blah, blah. If I don't see you again, Arsenal forever be in my heart. I mean, that's to speak of a guy that knew probably this would happen where he doesn't get to see the fans again. So I don't think the communication's been awful because a lot of this has been kind of on the precipice, and I think he's even put it out there that he kind of knew that. So I don't agree with the right thing. And I also don't like the idea of putting a fly in the ointment. Arsenal right now are as cohesive, positive, in a great moment where we've talked about it before. You get through the defence. Oh, here comes David Raya. Set pieces were unbelievable. Counter-attack, good. Free-flowing football, good at the minute. The team atmosphere is perfect. The crowd are on song. We got a song before the game. People love it. We filled this the area around the Emirates after big wins and before big matches. Champions League, we got pedigree again. We're in Champions League finals. We couldn't be in we're close to maxing out on how good a squad can be, how good a feeling it can be, how confident, how well they play, all these things. Defense, offense, everything. Special teams in an NFL reference. I don't want one of our own, an Ian Wright, a legend like that, to kind of put a little mark on it. Like, just stay out of it. He's kind of mentioning he's heard from Martinelli, or he's known something. But you don't need to expose that. We don't also want teams to know we want to get rid of Martinelli because we want to get a better price. All this stuff is it only hurts us. And I understand the sentiment because I agree with it. I think Martinelli deserves a lot of respect. And I'd love him to have a proper send-off. But 9 times out of 10, players don't get the send-off. Even if you're a legend. Rodri didn't. De Bruyne didn't. These guys just leave in the dead of night and they're legends. And they have to do a little video and go, yeah, that was the best. They don't get that kind of end moment. He got an end moment by lifting the Premier League trophy and going on a parade. What else did he need? I know he did some pre-season. He stood side stage, at Wembley in the opening day. But that's football, And I love Martinelli, but I also agree. We've all agreed that we need to move on. When Trossard was aging and Martinelli wasn't improving, I think we all agreed that left side needed 2 new players on that side. And we found one in Solis who did start this game, 34 million from Club Bruges. The Greek international is something else. He moves like Sanchez or Kvaratskhelia. I'm not saying he's as good as either. We don't know yet. But if you include fantasy football assists, he's now, I think it's 8 goals and assists from 8 for Arsenal. Or 7 from 7, sorry. 1 goal, 6 assists. He's a machine. Like, the way in which he drives the defence back is quite alarming because we have not seen this. Trossard plays a different type of game. He wants to get involved elsewhere. Martinelli head down and go, hasn't overly improved. This guy's driving the defence back. He's 1-on-1 a lot because Saka's doubled up. It's a real problem for the league. He wants to cut in. He also wants to go wide. He gets the ball out quick. He doesn't wait for you to set yourself. He just gets the ball in the box. Bit of hit on hope. Even the goal that he gets for Saka. It's not a hit and hope, but he's certainly just putting it in an area, which I love. That's what you should do. Spam it. This is what Madueke doesn't do enough, in my opinion. But he starts on the left side. On the right side, we have Saka, and up front, we have Havertz. It looks like Arteta has the guys he always wanted to be playing football together available. And I'm talking Odegaard, Havertz, Saka, and Ben White. They're the players that I think he's dreamt of all being in the same squad. And the last time that happened was 2024 in the same team. If you even remove Ben White from that and it's just Saka, Havertz, and Odegaard, it's December 2024 since we last had those guys on the pitch at the same time. It is so bizarre. When you think of Arsenal and you think of their attack, you kind of think of those 3 players. And Ben White overlapping in that kind of right-hand side, keeping the ball a lot, looking for the passes. And this game was a perfect example of just how many times can you probe? But there's a lot of football players you watch in these positions and they don't quite do the right thing. It is so nice to watch Odegaard in that position because you can almost see he's, you imagine a little kid finding a Rubik's Cube for the first time and just kind of enjoying himself. That's what he looks like. Every time he gets the ball, he's thinking, oh, I could have done that. Now I'll go here. All right, if we keep rotating, and everyone's rotating, they're all rotating in a big circle. And he goes, oh, yeah, no, I'll have a go then. And he sees these things that we don't see. And it's such a pleasure to watch when he's on song like this. And it's what we had a couple of years ago when we looked really good. We haven't had it for a while because Odegaard missed pretty much all of last season. Havertz pretty much missed all of last season. Saka pretty much did. And even if you go the year before, in January, Havertz and Saka went out for 6 months. And Odegaard was coming back only 3 months later to end the season. So it's just been rare that we've had these guys together. And people talk about, we need a big name. And yeah, I get that. You look at other teams and you think, oh, they're superstars. And I don't think you necessarily jump at the idea of Solis, Saka, Havertz and Odegaard as the scariest front 4. But boy, they play the best football of the top 6. When they're all on the pitch, they will play the best football. And you add Lewis Skelly and Declan Rice, or Lewis Skelly and Bruno Guimaraes, or Rice and Bruno Guimaraes. It's the best. It's the team that has the best ability to play the best football. And if you add Dauman in there of Eza, Gyökeres, it just is. And we saw that here. And like I said, it was so relaxing because we just haven't been relaxed for so long. Winning the title definitely helped, but here's the thing with this game, and this is the whole weekend as a whole. I don't know if we were very good or Coventry were very bad or a mixture of the two because they are a promoted side. They didn't really lay a glove. They had 1 shot on target, Rare kind of comfortably saved. Other than that, we got the goal early, which was a big issue last year sometimes, was kind of got late in games. That crowd started getting nervy at 60 minutes, and we make a mistake. We go one down, we have to try and rescue a point, then we try and get the full 3 points, but we can't get it. It feels like a loss, all that kind of stuff. We got the goal, 15 minutes, Kai Havertz. And it is made, the Havertz goal is made by, I'm doing this completely off memory, and it's, for whatever reason, been 4 days since we last played, which is just bonkers, doesn't it? It's so mad that we're only at Monday. It's 4 days since we played. Who did make this goal? I can't even remember the goal. Oh, Calafiori. Solis does really good work out wide, Calafiori, but that speed, is similar to Solis, the speed he gets that ball out and the precision of it, and then a really nice finish from Havertz. 1-0. And at that point, we were already like running rampant a little bit, and Solis was cutting in. You can tell almost he doesn't want to shoot. He's trying to get assists. And that might come with time, just being more confident with the players. But Saka looks sharp going on the outside, coming on the inside. And eventually Solis gets that ball down, drives it, hits it across with his left foot. The goalie kind of parries it, which is what removes the actual physical assist as far as Opta, but still keeps him a fantasy football assist for Bukayo Saka. And Havertz and Saka get on the score sheet together. And there's something very viable about that, I think. And then obviously the second half starts with Ben White on the overlap, sliding him in, and he pulls it back, and Odegaard on his right foot kind of scuffs it, and the goalie he kind of gets wrong-footed and he just ends up in. But those three being on the score sheet together is a lot, because I think all three feel like they've got something to prove. I think all three didn't feel like they were value to that winning that title last year fully. I think they know they missed a lot. They need to have a good season. And what a way to start, because they played unbelievable, all three of them. And to get all three of them to get the goal was just, it felt so correct. And we started ringing the changes there. Zubimendi, we got Rice off. We got Madueke on. Eza came out on left, which I assume is going to be his position at the minute, because as far as on the left, no one actually, because Jesus could play out there, Martinelli could play out there, Trossard, all going to leave. Vieira can play out there, going to leave. Madueke, we know he's not good on that side. Saka's not good on that side. They both right-hand side guys. Dalman is a 10 who can play right. Odegaard is a 10. Moreno is a 10 or an 8. Eza is a left 8 or a 10. Or he can play left wing. He doesn't play it often. It's one of these kind of myths that he was playing there a lot. He wasn't. You can see he's not a winger. So it's not something you want to start games often with. And I think that is why we're going to have to go into the market for someone left-sided. Because Solis is showing us the way. He's showing us how good wing play has to be. Saka does it already. Madueke is a different type of winger. But I'm happy if the backup Solis is a out-and-out Nico Williams, head down, go to the byline, pull it back like a Madueke, but hopefully better. I think the Eza version of Solis, he wants to come central. He was kind of standing by the centre forward a lot. I don't know. But with Eza, I think he wants to play in that 10 as the backup to Odegaard, and I get that. But we also have Dalman there. Winery was on the bench here, wasn't missing. But I do think he'll go on loan. We do have another 7 days left of the transfer window to get stuff done. But we also have players like Moreno who we need to use, and we did use in this game. And he can also go up front. Gyökeres was not used, and I think that's Hincapi also came on. Gyökeres not being used is very interesting to me. Either there is something to this, and there is someone else, because I don't want us. I love the fact we got back to Havertz, Saka, Odegaard, and this kind of team. What we can't do is go too far back to that, because that team also came second a couple of times before they ended up injured. And when they weren't in a team, we won the league. And we clearly play a lot better football. But the proof is not in the pudding, it's in the eating. Because Gyökeres, Madueke, Martinelli, Trossard, these guys, Eza, they got us over the line last year massively when our big boys weren't there. And when our big boys were there, we played unbelievable football, we came up short. There's lots of other factors. Pep Guardiola, Man City, how good they were, all these things. But it's just interesting that we're going to go, potentially, is he thinking, let's move Gyökeres on, Moreno's a backup to Havertz, even if we don't get a classic 10, because Alvarez gets booed out of the Metropolitano yesterday. Is he end up, this happened to Aguero. He wanted out. I think it was Real Madrid. Atletico fans booed him. It became unattainable. He had to be sold, but they refused to sell him inside the league. He ends up going to Man City, becomes a Man City legend. So to all the Arsenal fans that don't want him there because he doesn't want to be at Arsenal, I get it. I feel it. But there's also history could repeat itself and he could become a bit of an Arsenal legend. He's a world-class player, but he's a bit of a 9/10/left side. It's another Eze, when Airy, Havertz, Moreno. There's a lot of connection to all these guys, and I get it, and that's how Arteta wants to play. But when we had an out-and-out forward last year, we won a lot of games. We won the Premier League. I don't want us to get so far away that we won't use that. I do love the idea still of Havertz for 60, 70 minutes and then Gyökeres against tired legs. We didn't get to see it here, but I also think he knows Gyökeres played some minutes already. And there's players like Moreno who haven't had enough, Zubimendi haven't had enough. Hincapi deserves to be on. I kind of get what he was doing. Eze needs to be playing football. So I can kind of see it was just situational because the next game could be 0-0 at 60. And I can tell you what, Gyökeres will come on. At 3-0 up, you can kind of do different changes. So could have just been game state. While the transfer window's open, it just worries you a little bit, doesn't it? But we won 3-0. Nothing really to write home. The only sadness really was Bruno Guimaraes' injury, which we learnt about. Konsa got announced to the crowd before the game. Some funny videos of him and Eze at the training ground as well, if you want to check them out. But overall, I kind of felt good. I think we're good. I don't know about Coventry. I don't know. But you can only beat what's in front of you. And I know the next 4 games before the international break, being Villa away, Chelsea at home, Sunderland and Brighton away, are going to be extremely tough. But then we saw the first week. And this is when it kind of tweaks a tiny bit because certain games do you think are extremely awful might actually be easier this year than they were last year. There's games that were a lot easier last year that might be worse. I don't think we're going to beat Leeds 5 and 4-0. But could we go to Stadium and Light and win against Sunderland? Maybe. They were very good against Ipswich, but they lost. Villa were 4-0 down after 30 minutes and then down to 10 men against Brighton. When you looked at that starting 11, and we're part of the reason, they've lost Ollie Watkins, nearly anyway, silence. And they lost Ollie Watkins, Rodgers, Konsa, and Emi Martinez soon. I'd say that's Villa. Those 4 players I'd describe as the players for Villa. So it is really alarming. And they've brought in a couple of good players, but it doesn't look right. And it wasn't right. Brighton absolutely were all over them. So that game at Villa Park might come at the right time because at Christmas, when they've got either a new manager or new players or they've set into form, God knows what, we played 2 days prior, it might be difficult. But with 8-9 days rest, going to that Villa team, and they're going to be better at Villa Park, I'm sure. They're going to learn from it. But it might be the best time to play them. So that game might be better than we thought. Maybe Sunderland might be better than we thought. Brighton looks tough. Chelsea will wait to see tonight, but you would assume Chelsea would be very difficult. Luckily, it is at the Emirates, so hopefully we have enough. But with those 4 games, it can be difficult. We might lose one. We might draw a couple. I don't know. So it was really important to win that first game, and we learnt over the weekend just how big it is to just get that 3 points on the board and just wipe your hands of it. Move forward, keep moving forward. We've won back-to-back 3-0, Community Shield, and then the first game. No goals conceded, 6 goals scored. It feels good. And, we did look very good against Coventry, but it was Coventry, but we also looked good against Man City. And Man City this week, in week 1, did look poor at times, but they also looked very good at times. I thought the football they played was unbelievable at times, Man City. It was also wide open. They allowed themselves wide open. They end up scratching back from the Tavernier early goal with Mark Gay and Gvardiol. And Gay was playing the 10 role. It was very confusing. Elliot Anderson went off with a little knock. There's some interesting bits. Haaland's cut his hair, obviously. But there was times where I thought, they play some really good football. They were just a bit unlucky. Or they were just blocked very well and all these kind of things. They will win a lot of games this year. I think people writing them off are silly. But it also shows we absolutely dominated them 8 days ago. And they're a very good team. We won 3-0. And we can see now they're already ready. It's not like they were massively under prepared and all this kind of stuff. We saw against Bournemouth, even though they conceded early, they were very good. So maybe our level is very good, and we've played kind of maybe the team that come 20th, maybe the team that comes second or first. Either way, the outcome's been the same, 3-0 to Arsenal. So I feel very good with that. I walked away with it kind of just chuffed. Is any way to describe it. I don't want anyone to add anything weird to it. Transfer market's always interesting to do that, where maybe you miss out on a player and people get really sad about it. Or we've had a lot of that this summer, obviously. But we're also just in the market, and I think we have to remember that. People keep saying, they missed out on Rodgers, then Vinicius, then this player, then this player. Last year, Bertie did the same, missed out on the first two people he wanted and end up with the third. Fair, maybe, but you've got to be in it to win it. You sometimes players don't go for certain teams don't go for certain players because they just know they won't get them. We're just trying to get anyone that of high quality, and maybe you miss out on a couple, but you end up with you shoot for the moon, you get land in the stars. That kind of comment. It feels like that, and I do think we need another left winger, especially if we move Martinelli on and Jesus, Vieira, Nelson, potentially Winery on loan. I think one more winger in, a left-sided player, I'd be happy with. If we don't get anyone else, I'm more than happy. I think keep that powder dry, as the Arsenal fans have got overly used to hearing. January, you go and get yourself a Krupi or maybe someone who ended up not moving or got frozen out like an Alvarez, maybe at a certain lesser price. I don't know, but I wonder if we could get to January with Solis and Eze as the left side. And the downside is I don't think Eze's much of a left winger, and if Solis gets a long-term injury, touch wood, I wouldn't like to see Eze lining up there, and there's also not anyone actually else that could do it. Usually there's someone who, he can do it. There's not. Our forwards are forwards. They're central. Our rights are rights. Our left, we used to have, like I said, Martinelli, Jesus, and Trossard, and last year Eze also in the team, all together. So there's 4 options for that left side, whereas now we have 2. And if one goes, the other one's not our favourite option in that role. So I do think we need left-sided player, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not until January, and I'm fine with that. The talking points over the weekend, I'd say, taking for granted 3 points, is Hull beating Man United at home 2-0. Harry Maguire, the highlight of the match is Harry Maguire marking his own man and pulling his teammate's shirt to stop him getting to the ball. I think that's good. I think that's good stuff. I think the Hull fans doing the tiger paw thing, claws, I should say. That was fun. Some people hate it. I think it's hilarious. It was a poor one, I think, for United. And this is what I was trying to say earlier about the kind of unmeasurable metrics. Is everyone felt Man United felt quite comfortable going into the season and felt good after how they finished last season. They felt like they finally found the manager. They liked the players. They liked Mbeumo and Cunha and Sesko, and Fernandes was staying. And they brought, Mainu got back into the team. They brought in Tielemans. Everyone thought that was an absolute bargain, but this might come back. But I don't know if it was a bargain. I don't know if his legs are gone. It felt that way. And then also taking Chelsea, who came 10th bench player in Santos, may not be the best thing long term. I don't know, but I do still think they're going to be absolutely fine. But I think their fans went from, I think we might sneak the league here, to, it's the same old. And Tottenham have done the exact same thing. They've bought a lot of players. They spent a lot of money. Their net spend's decent. But then they put that 11 out and you went, ooh, where's that all gone then? And a lot of it's because Savinho and Mamouche were kind of counting, but they haven't got there yet. And he didn't start. I think Fernandes, and I don't know. There was a couple of things that were quite not there. And I think the fans were so over-excited that they forgot that teams like Brentford and Hull and that are just working away. They're a team. They've been a team for a while. And they can do a number on you, because if you don't learn your set pieces and things like that, in Man United's case, they were at sea with set pieces. They weren't good enough. They didn't want it as much. And it's what I mean by those like unseen metrics. There was no atmosphere to that team. There was no, I can't explain it. Sometimes you need 2 or 3 players that you just feel like they're the ones that wind the crowd up. That they kind of bring the team together. With Arsenal, you can tell kind of, we've got our players like Saka and Odegaard and that, but Gabriel is always in and around things happening. Declan Rice is a personality. Bruno Gomes joining it is, another one. Lewis Skelly's always involved and talking to people. Ben White, there's a thing, and when we celebrate, there's a way in which they bring them all together, as opposed to we've had years of Arsenal where one guy's dances and the other guys are celebrating, and the guy who scores dancing on his own to one side, and that's what it feels like with Man United. Cunha's doing the dance, and you got Maguire kind of tapping everyone else on the head. You need that feeling of a team, and I don't think United quite have it. There's not a good feeling there, and I think some of it is residual from ownership and the fans not being fully on board because of that. I don't know. And they might just absolutely smash because they've got a nice start. They haven't started great, but they've got a nice start. They might win next week, and in 3 weeks' time, they might be top. But there's something a little bit off. And same with Tottenham. The personalities aren't there. When everyone's there, they've got enough good players. They're going to win a lot of games. They'll be fine. But there's something quite missing. Something that, City have kind of lost a little bit because they've lost such a massive part of their core. But they've still got a little bit of it. Liverpool usually have it, but they, again, didn't look that way against Newcastle. Newcastle had it. That feeling of connection with the crowd. And considering they've sold so many players, that crowd could have come in there very hostile. And they were towards Isaac. But they weren't hostile towards their own team. Wissa really, that's someone who put it on his shoulders and he went, I'm going to be the main man. He wound that crowd up. He backed it up with a great performance. And nearly a great result, other than the last minute kind of penalty. And it was a penalty with Hall taking out Munoz. So it was just an odd weekend. Liverpool looked pretty. They looked a bit gun shy, but they're also very susceptible defensively. City, I thought, were massively open and susceptible defensively, but I thought they were really good going forward. I thought they looked really strong. And then Man United, I think, just were poor all around. And that interview with, I think it was, I want to say it's Tillemans, but I don't think it was. It was someone. Rio did an interview where they said, we haven't done any fitness work. It's all been tactical. And even Rio was like, oh. And they looked unfit. They didn't look up to the fight. They didn't look like they didn't have the legs. And that's a huge manager error, that, to not come in fit to the first game. But Man United, they looked all out of shape. Tottenham looked all out of shape. They'll come good, so will Man United, but they looked very out there. Teams that were surprising. Hull, I think, are going to cause a couple of issues with certain teams that aren't ready for that physicality and those set pieces and things like that. Brentford is still a very good side. I think a lot of teams will go there and get turned over like Tottenham did because they're good. Palace were as bad as I thought they would be, but when you actually watch the extended highlights of that game, Palace should have been 2-3-0 up. So there is something, but I just don't like. I think it's Mateta is suing the club about his contract. Sarr didn't want to be in the squad because he wants to move to Turkey. The 4 assets they have going for them, so I'm going to add Henderson to this. So 5. Henderson, Munoz, Wharton, Mateta and Sarr. They've lost Elise, Eze, Gay over the last few years. If Mateta and Sarr end up leaving before the end of this window, and Wharton and Munoz are there, it screams of relegation and then them getting 100 million for Wharton at the end of the season, and Munoz goes for 80 million, and they have to reshape their squad with that, plus Sarr's money, 250 million, and then try and smash the championship, which I think they will, because Eddie Nketiah will score 50 goals. I think that's his level, honestly. Sounds weird, but I think it is. Strand Larson will do well down there as well. So I think it won't be the worst thing if they do go down. I don't think any team wants to, but they could be that kind of team to hit 100 points. But you can just see those big assets slowly going, and their big money signing turned his knee over. Doesn't look good. Could be season. Everton still looked as rocky as usual, but then get a result, and I think they'll do that, and they'll finish them about 10th. So they were kind of exactly where I, in my head, imagined them. But other than that, I'd say Ipswich did really well to win that game. I don't think they were the better team, but they got a result. And this is what's big for the 3 promoted teams. You just got to get results sometimes. That was something that didn't happen for 10 years there, where the 3 teams came up, went back down, because they just couldn't even get a win. They'd draw some, they'd win one about Christmas. If Coventry win next weekend, which is very likely, home to Hull, all 3 of them will have a win. And sometimes we wait until Christmas for that. So that was quite good to see. I think beyond those games, the Villa one is the most shocking, but I did see that coming a little bit. Yeah, that's it. I'm looking forward to Chelsea tonight against Fulham. I think a lot of people weirdly have Fulham as the one team that could keep a relegated, a promoted team up, and Fulham drop in there. I don't see it. I think they've got too many good players like Munoz, Smith Rowe, Kevin, Bob. When you look at that, you just kind of go, there's some good players there. Like Calvin Bassey, Robinson. I don't see them going down. I think they might be a bit of an issue for Chelsea tonight. The worry I have with Chelsea is, and Cundy said this on TalkSport, it reminds me a bit of the Konsa year where they came in and he kind of started and then he moved them to that 5 at the back, which he prefers. And they lost maybe 2 out of the first 3 or 4 games, including to Arsenal 3-0. And they went on to win that league. And it also reminds me of that year that, I can't remember who was manager. It might have been Mourinho, maybe, second time around. It was the one where they bought Cesc Fabregas and Costa and Schürrle. And they started away at Burnley and they won 3-0. And Fabregas was unbelievable. But the year before, I think they came like 9th for the Europa Cup or something like that. And I remember watching that opening day and went, oh no. And I don't know if maybe everyone's got that feeling with Arsenal and we're going to go back to back. But I want to see this Chelsea team. I want to see how they gel. Because if they gel right off the bat, it's a problem for the league. The squad's very good. The manager's very good. The formation is very problematic to a lot of teams around the league. If you get it right. If you get it wrong, it's very difficult to do much. But if you get it right, which Xabi Alonso could, with that squad particularly, it's going to be problematic. And if they get it from the get-go and there's no kind of slow start, I think they're a real challenge for the league. But I think we all have them there. And when I talk to Chelsea fans, they go, "Oh no, we're so far off it." So I don't fully know, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Just 'cause I want to know. We got some good games coming up next week. I know we're at Villa Park. I think that's on the Monday Night Football. So we've got a long old wait, but we get to watch full weekend of football without kind of not concerning ourselves. I think it's worse to play last because you see how everyone else has done. If City win again and Liverpool get a win, you start thinking, oh God. Even though it's 2 games, you don't want to fall too far behind and all that. But it's going to be good. We've got Friday Night Football as well. So after tonight, there's only a 3-day gap and the Premier League's back, which is great. As for transfers, there's this weird kind of Savio, Marmoush signing. Basically, if Marmoush gets sold for more than 59 million, Man City have to pay Frankfurt 10 million. They're going to sell him for under 59 million, which is massively under market value for his stature and play, and opt to have him rated much higher, closer to 80, 90 million. Savinho, was brought in for 30 million. I know it went through Genoa, owned by Man City, so it was a bit of a cut price because it's a club that's a part of their kind of group, but it ended up being 30 million. He scored 2 Premier League goals since then. He's not been good. He's been a big old bust. So you'd think maybe, 20 million, Trossard money. I know he's young, but he hasn't proved anything for a while now. No, it looks like it's going to be 85 million. I know this is only coming up because it's this 2 players going to the same club. If Tottenham only wanted Marmoush, I'm sure City would want a bigger fee and just accept the 10 million, because it's similar to when people get taxed at a certain price in this country, isn't it? And they go, well, it's better off to make, 40k a year, 20% tax than 60k at 50 or whatever, because you do actually make less money. I get that. But I think with Marmoush, he'd be 85 million and they'd be paying 85 million. And 10 million off, and then that's 75 million still. They don't want to just get 50 million, 55 million, 59 million, whatever it ends up going to be. They want more. But because they're doing the double deal, they can get more out of it. Because realistically, Savino, you could probably make your money back, 30 million. Marmoush, 80. So that's 110 for the 2. They're going to pay 50 and 80. So you're going to get 130, 140. So it helps them selling them collective like they are. And also collectively saves them because they're not having to pay it. So basically, they've switched their price tags around to avoid playing Frankfurt, which is awful because teams like Frankfurt, they rely on these kind of sell-on clauses because they create these superstars, big European clubs like Man United, Man City and Chelsea, and this come and get them, move them on after a couple of years, and they make a little bit of extra money, and that can kind of help them for the next financial year. Them not doing it is awful. I think it really is. And I get it's them trying to be smart or whatever. It's not. I think it's to an extent it's finagling the books like they did for years, and that's why the 115 charges are where they are. It's odd. It's not quite as bad, but I just think it's harsh. There's no they can afford it. They're absolutely fine. The other interesting one is the 115 charges. So a bit more information has come out about the 115 charges, and it's becoming a bit political. So this is going to be very interesting how this goes. It looks like that Man City know they're guilty, because the information we're getting is that in some capacity, and this is all, what do I want to do? I want to quote unquote, because this is not fact. This is what I'm reading. That the Man City's owners, who are from the Middle East, are kind of saying essentially that if something were to happen with the City stuff, that they wouldn't do business with the UK going forward. This is not a football matter. They're making it a political matter, a country matter, which screams that they're definitely guilty, because they're kind of going, you know what I mean? Like it's them getting ahead of it and going, well, no, you better not though, because you don't want to lose all this. So it's whether the Premier League or the UK or whether it have a backbone, because it's pretty apparent they're guilty. It's pretty apparent it's going to be a big old deduction or expulsion to maybe a lower league. I don't know, but it does scream that they are potentially guilty. Because I'll just read from City Extra. UAE officials caution that a negative outcome concerning Man City's 115 charges could damage improved relations with the UK, according to two people familiar with the matter. I just don't like. It doesn't sit well that it's becoming this. It's becoming something that isn't football, and that's a worry, because realistically they have to be charged based on football matters, and they can't be worried about sanctions from other countries and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what it does actually mean as far as anything really bad. I just think they have to just do what they see in front of them. If you finagle the books for this long, you have to be reprimanded. Chelsea have been reprimanded loads of times for different reasons. Everton, Nottingham Forest. In the history, think of Juventus and Rangers and all these other teams, Portsmouth, Sheffield Wednesday recently, Leicester. Not necessarily always financial changing of the books, but it's usually just not falling inside the rules or the guidelines you have to do. So I think we're at a point where they're going to have to do something. And they're going to have to come up with something soon, because it's just odd when you think they just bought Elliot Anderson for 116 million. Buwadi looks like he's about to get done for 100 million. The Here We Go was this weekend. And you think, how are we in a situation where the team with a massive impending court case, well, the court case has happened, we just haven't got the outcome, are able to spend 220 million on two young midfielders that are going to be there for the next potentially 5, 6, 7, 8 years, because it feels like they're preparing, but also I don't understand why these players would go, do you know what, I really want to go to Man City, because I'm sure that would end well, because as much as you can get covered by, I'm sure Elliot Anderson has a clause that says if we get relegated or something, I can leave for 10 million and he can just go pick his club or something. But that still doesn't make sense, because why would you want to be a part of something that might need a clause like that? For example, when Konsa joins Arsenal, I'm sure he's not signing a clause that says if we get relegated, I'm able to move on, or if I deem that the deduction of points too big, I'm allowed to leave for free. Or he's not signing that; he's just signing to join. So I find it odd that young players like that, who are wanted by Man United and Chelsea and all these other teams, like Elliot Anderson, why would he choose Man City? And that's what makes me feel like they're not guilty and they've been given reassurance. But also, I think people are lying. So who actually knows? I feel like I've been talking about these 115 charges the whole time we had this podcast for nearly 4 years now. So I'm kind of sick of that. I just want an outcome. And I don't like also, here's another one. I love the fact Arsenal won the league last year against Pep and Rodri and Bernardo. That feels good. I feel like we finally overcame our big old nemesis that we couldn't. If we'd won it this year coming now against Maresca, non-Rodri, no Bernardo, and that was the first time, it wouldn't have hit the same, I think. We had to beat that lot. But the same could be said about the point deduction in that. I don't want it to hit Maresca's Man City. They might struggle already. Who knows? They might not. Maybe we're going to need this point deduction. But I wanted it to hit 5 years ago. So they didn't win 4 in a row and all these things, win the Champions League, all these things that they can brag about that they shouldn't be bragging about because it was done potentially, quote unquote, illegally long term. So it's a little bit annoying that it's even gone this far when other teams have just been always snap, point deducted, or fined, or whatever it is. So it's just odd. But time will tell. And Premier League is back next week. I'll be talking about that all on Wednesday, kind of getting prepped for it. Talk about different factors that come into it. I'll talk a little bit about the Chelsea-Fulham game, and so I can give my full feelings after 1 week of who's a real contender, who isn't a contender. And like I said at the start of this episode, I think to an extent, there's no way of knowing until Christmas, is there? Because teams could lose the first 3 and then win the next 15 until Christmas and are top of the league. We look at Liverpool last year. I think they won 5 from 5, 15 points. And everyone thought, well, spending $500 million after winning the league and then going 5 from 5, I think it's who can come second. And we all kind of agreed with that. I remember going into October kind of thinking, if we could come second to this Liverpool lot again and come fourth, my word, come second for a fourth time, I'll be really chuffed. And then obviously what happened with Liverpool happened. So you don't fully get a picture until later. And then also there's injuries. There's also other things that come into fact. So time will tell. But I want to give my overall feelings of that first group of fixtures and who's a real hit and who's a miss. But that'll be it here on iTunes and Spotify. Give us a 5-star review. If you want a bit more audio, I apologise. I feel like I have not been caffeinated. So I feel like I've stumbled on a lot of words today. I feel like I've paused this. I pretty much never paused a podcast unless there's a massive amount of noise. And even we had a dog barking. So been an odd episode, I'd say that. But maybe my brain's not fully functioning. And when you do a podcast on your own a lot of the time, you do feel like a bit of a maniac screaming into a void. But here we are. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Patreon is there. I'll be back on Wednesday and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.